TJ gave a little fist bump, by the way, because finally someone answered to his call to action. All right, let's go into the first game. This is Paladin versus Druid. Now, you know, again, every time we've seen Druid on stream, it's either floundered fantastically, you know, to the point where we're just wondering if it can ever win a game, or just barely getting over the edge. You know, what about Cora's deck list here do you think that can give her a fighting chance, or perhaps we're going to see a repeat of history?
Well, Cora's deck list here is, in fact, straight up Token Druid. This is Token Druid in the vein that we saw toward last season. Even just straight up Violet Teacher Power of the Wild. It isn't a tree speaker. We've seen some of those come out in the wake of Rostagon's Rumble, but with, I imagine, the nerfs to Wild Growth and Nourish, Core's going to try and go a little bit lower to the ground with the Power of the Wild build. So this is a deck that doesn't necessarily have to ramp, because it can just play you know, two cost Power of the Wild if it wants to against some decks, and it can just play its 4 drops and such rather than having to ramp up. So it may be a little bit less impacted by the nerfs than some other decks, but still pretty hard hit.
Yeah, and I think that Even Paladin's going to really put the pressure on, because Even Paladin was already starting to see a surge of popularity because of Druid. You factor in Token Druid, though, that's always one of those weird, you know, the weird uncle at the dinner family reunion. You know, no one really knows how to categorize it, because is it more of a fast deck? Is it more of a mid-range deck? Is it even a late-game combo-centric deck that people try to play? And the answer is all of them.
Right, that's a lot of the power of Token Druid, is you can just play a token deck. You can just play, you know, your Whispering Woods or Violet Teacher into Power of the Wild, and that can be threatening. But you can also ramp up, and ooh, Wild Growth on 3. We see the thumbs up from Cora there, right on time. This is usually when you're like, oh, my Wild Growth is a turn late. No, turns out that's right on time for Cora. She finds that Wild Growth that gives a thumbs up. But Pathra does have very powerful ways to continue to put pressure on. She has Corpse Taker here. She has the Glass Knight, and you know that will put her in a position to really put the pressure on Cora to prevent her from just getting this time to ramp up.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the fact that she even just got it is important, but not having other tools in the mid-game, because she threw away the Spreading Plague, is going to be a little painful, you know. And even if she did have Nourish for 5 mana still,
I actually didn't even, I was gonna say, I didn't even realize that with the Kangaroo draw, there's no Divine Shield in either of these. Yeah. And that just lines up straight into the swipe. I wonder if Pathra didn't notice that herself, because she could have played the Glass Knight, which would have given her a board that was resilient to a swipe. And obviously the Corpse Taker, if it sticks, is more dangerous, because yes, it has Wind Fury, it can crack for a bunch more damage. But in that particular situation, it ended up lining up perfectly with Cora's best removal option.
You're completely right. It's something that I even noticed too, right before the series started. Pathra looked like she was trying to stay awake. You know, she was like rubbing her eyes, and travel is a very real thing. You know, the amount of times Cora's ferried back and forth in Southern California and Chicago, and she does it on a weekly basis, so she's okay with traveling. But Pathra just came, you know, a month ago for BlizzCon, had to travel back, then came back one more time while going to other events.
She's also much farther away.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between traveling from Europe, where Pathra currently lives, and coming from the Midwest in the United States. And yeah, we see, yeah, Pathra does potentially have more of a fatigue factor setting in. There's Blessing of Kings picked up for Pathra here, so she can potentially buff her board, but decides to go with the True Silver Champion to continue pushing damage. And I wonder if we'll see her play another minion here. There was an opportunity for Cora to play Spreading Plague into that Arcane Tyrant. So yeah, I expect to see Pathra go wide, because if there were a Spreading Plague, it probably would have come down that turn already.
Yeah, and I think this is the point in which Pathra wants to really press in, considering that she has that Avenging Wrath and Blessing of King's finisher. Malfurion the Pestilent, though, a fantastic pickup here for SongBird.
Yep. Frankly, probably the best draw she could have had this turn. Gives her the ability to defend herself a little bit with these 1/5s, as well as obviously the increased power in her hero power every turn. Ooh, a Tarim here is pretty nice. This is interesting, because there's a couple of ways that Pathra could do this. She could like value trade one of these with 2 of the minions, and then play Tarim to keep her board wide.
Yeah, and I think that's what you kind of want to do. You want to put maximum pressure while being able to set up for whatever opponent can do in response. So a Spreading Plague comes out, you have maximum tokens to do 3/3 damage, and it should be able to line up okay. You generally want like even numbers on the Spreading Plague with the 3/3, so you can attack and kill off something, as opposed to just leaving up a 1/2 token from your opponent.
But yeah, and Cora here, she's in kind of a rough spot either way. Pathra has a number of ways she could choose to play this turn. It looks like it will not be the Sunkeeper Terra.
Max damage? Does this mean she's not going to even hero power?
It looks like she's consolidating her board against a Spreading Plague here.
Yeah, it looks like it. If she doesn't hero power or play the Crystal Smith Kangor, that's exactly what she's going for, but she also weakens her own Sunkeeper Terra.
Okay, yeah, she's going to go ahead and play those out. That's interesting. Did she trade off an extra minion there, though? Oh, no, never mind.
No.
Yeah, she needed that. The one went into that, regardless. Okay.
Right.
So now Cora's in a position where she has Swipe, which can clear off a couple of these that are damaged, and could just swipe into the 6/7 hero power. There's still 2 minions left on the board after that. And then she still takes a lot of damage, so we may actually just see branching paths for armor. Going to upgrade this Spellstone. You branch paths for armor, and then swipe the 2/2 here, coin out the Spellstone. Yeah, that's what's going to happen here. But with having to use that coin here, it does mean that she's another turn away from the Ultimate Infestation.
Yeah, that's painful, but not the end of the world. What will stink, though, if a big minion comes out on 8 mana, or the equivalent of.
It's interesting because Pathra, if Pathra had gone with the line of play with Tarim last turn, she would have been much less vulnerable to potential swipe because all of her minions would have been 3/3.
Precisely. And, things like Spellstone are a little bit more distributed, so it's like, it's not as devastating to stack into one single removal piece. And when they have Malfurion up, isn't that more likely that they can upgrade those Spellstones too?
Right, sure.
Because they have the ability to gain that armor.
Well, Pathra has a number of options here. Probably just going to go a little bit wider on the board with the Glass Knight plus the Amani Berserker. Hero power again. Time for a little blood, I think.
I think so. I think when you have Sunkeeper Terra, you're not as afraid of extending into the board.
Right.
And the worst case scenario is you end up just trading evenly.
Power of the Wild here. We'll probably see... Interesting, because branching paths draw here is a little bit less appealing if you are just planning on casting the Ultimate Infestation next turn.
Yeah. I think I'm okay with using branching paths to even just gain armor.
It's not unreasonable, because next turn, Cora will be drawing her... Okay, she's going to go ahead and just make a 3/2. Interesting.
Okay.
So here, I think she wants to hold on the Branching Path because it is such a powerful card in Token Druid specifically, in order to buff her board and push additional damage as well as potential survivability options. Obviously, Power of the Wild can do the same thing in terms of buffing your board, but it's a little bit less powerful for pushing that damage.
Yeah. I think the flexibility of Branching Path is what's really important. And, even Paladin's not exactly big combo damage. It's just more slow incremental advantages until they suddenly come out with, just a little bit more burst with Avenging Wrath, True Silver Champion type scenarios. So 30 is perfectly fine right now.
Reporting for duty.
It is interesting to use, the Power of the Wild in that spot specifically, but it ends up just being kind of nothing really here for the Druid player. And so I think Cora just going to use it to gain some momentum back by answering the board state.
Yep, and Ultimate Infestation does come down. We'll take out Tarim alongside this 3/3 Panther.
Picks up the important combo of Soul of the Fars with Spreading Plague. A combo that's a little bit tricky for Ethan Paladin to answer, but it's not impossible.
Spiker's Steed is a nice draw from Pathra here, though. Does give her a tool to defend herself that's pretty tough for Cora to punch through. Can also just allow her to kill this 5/5 immediately.
When your opponent plays Ultimate Infestation, though, you're kind of expecting that Spreading Plague as well. So I think that's what makes this even better, too.
Yeah, I like just firing off the Spreading Plague here. And you can potentially, around the Spiker's Steed here, you can just go face here. There's no reason to kill to necessarily put the damage into the 5/5 because you're not playing against it with silence or anything. So this is just a 5/5 that's going to have to attack into your Divine Shielded Spiker's Steed minion as well.
Now Cora has a full hand. Her best defensive play is the Spreading Plague.
She's Spreading Plague into Arcane Tyrant into the Soul of the Forest? which does give her a pretty big board. But that Spike Ridge Steed is pretty crucial because not only did it force Cora into a position where she had to lose her 5/5 rather than kill a minion, it also provides defense against the potential counterattack that Cora can set up here.
Yeah, and regardless of how Cora sets this up, though, it seems like unless she's willing to gain a lot of life with the branching paths, she's just going to die to the equality play.
It's true.
Like, even Paladin's just so powerful when they have this board, because then equality isn't just a defensive play, it just helps get through any kind of big wall of taunts. Unless somehow it magically misses every single taunt minion, and then Pathra has to trade. Soul of the Forest is just straight up death here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cora's in a position where if you have a quality consecration, I'm not going to win. If you have a way to punch through my board here, I don't really see a way out of this. Because if you try and play like defensively and just gain some armor here or something like that, how are you winning this game? Because you still have no way to actually make inroads on your opponent's board. All right, Avenging Wrath.
Yeah, and as long as it gets rid of the top minions, it should be perfectly fine. And it has a high likelihood.
And they're all gone. And that is going to be game one. Pathra takes the lead, defeating Cora's Druid deck. And we have not seen Druid do well in this tournament so far. It has, understandably, after the nerfs, many of the Druid decks have felt dramatically weaker. And this is just another example of Druid going down.
Yeah, Druid is definitely in shambles right now.
Part of the whole experience.
Absolutely. I mean, Hearthstone is not just, of course, draw on Wild Growth on 3 and Nourish on 6, but it's also being able to hang out with your friends. And one thing that kind of ties us all together is I feel like most Hearthstone players at this point check their egos at the door. So even if it's a crushing defeat, they always get up, shake hands, /hug, talk about it, and help each other improve right after they just lost or beat each other.
Yeah, we've seen particularly, I think, in this tournament, great camaraderie among the competitors. Even after hard-fought battles, we do see the handshakes and hugs coming out. And speaking of hard-fought battles, this is going to be a tough one, simply because this is a matchup that can really, really be quite swingy. The even Shaman versus even Paladin matchup, very, very oriented in who can get control of the board, and the Paladin is the one who is better able to take back control of the board, but the Shaman is the one who has the best tools to maintain that dominance early on.
Yeah, I like this matchup a lot, in the sense that I feel like it feels a little bit more fair because both players have access to very cheap tempo options with their hero power, and it just makes it kind of like classic Hearthstone of, can you squeeze out extra value? How do you adapt to your opponent building? Do you extend because you know they can clear? How do you manage your resources? So I'm a big fan of this matchup, although it does tend to be pretty dramatically even Paladin favored because of what you said with the consecration and quality cores.
Right. This is a matchup that is so much about who can get on the board, who can stay on the board, and the Shaman is great at getting there. We see Cora now. She has an enormous board presence. She has 5 minions on the board already. It's turn 3. Pathra, though, she has that consecration in hand. That could clear off quite a bit of it, strand that Sea Giant potentially, which is a major concern for Pathra here. With the immediate inclination is, okay, well, if I'm not going to play my consecration, I just hero power. If she hero powers, Sea Giant comes down next turn.
Yeah.
So that's something that you have to really pay attention to in this matchup, because you really don't want to put yourself in a position where you're making things even worse for you when you're already behind.
Yeah, very nicely done. Even with the pun at the very end as well. You don't want to make it even worse, and that's exactly what's happening.
Uh-oh. All right,
Sea coming down with...
And this is actually a situation where we can see Flame Tongue plus Sea Giant, if we really wanted to.
Okay.
Not going to be Flame... Okay. Well, now we can't Sea Giant and Flame Tongue because there's not enough board space after the hero power. We can still Sea Giant.
Yeah, we definitely want to Sea Giant.
Right.
I think Cora autopilot a little bit here with the board space, because I think the Flame Tongue here would have been extremely efficient, to say the least, to push through. But maybe in her mind it's also an overextension because of Pyromancer and equality.
I think the little shake of her head there from Cora, I think she recognized, oh well, I could have played Flame Tongue and then played the Sea Giant and pushed through much more effectively here.
Right.
Instead, I mean, she's still in a decent position, but now a consecration from Pathra here, because she still has the minion in play, can clear off everything but the Sea Giant.
Yes, and that is very devastating to the even Shaman. They need this opportunity to really punish. and push for damage. Now, it's not, you know, over by any means, but man, is that Sea Giant sad. He cannot go face. And Zalay somewhere over now is shaking his head right now. he wanted that. He's giggling. I see you, Zalay. He really wanted that 8 damage to go upstairs.
That's what it's about. Fundamentals. Big minions going face.
That's right. We'll save it for the analyst death. I don't want to steal their thunder. They're going to go ahead and talk about it in a sec. But I mean, even more so, you can see Korra kind of recognizing that situation. By the way, how often have we been seeing this, like Corpse Taker coming down and being super annoying, but also, you know, Fire Elemental to gain some tempo, so not the end of the world here.
But now this is the 8 damage going face. Down to 21 here. Pathra does not have equality. She does not have a great way to deal with these gigantic minions. She does have the Spike Ridge Steed, which can put up a roadblock here that can buy her quite a bit of time because she did have this 1-1 survive.
Yeah, how do you deal with this efficiently without getting overwhelmed? Because you know, that Sea Giant has been the huge difference maker for this game so far.
I mean, I do think that, you know, sort of in a couple of stages here, we have, you know, seen the players, you know, put themselves kind of in awkward positions by their own doing, frankly. You know, Pathra did choose to coin out that chain gang, which, if there is no Sea Giant on the other side, is, you know, very powerful against the board at hand, but ended up being punished by the Sea Giant. And then, you know, Korra could have punished her even more if she had been able to take advantage of that Flame Totem as well.
Yeah, it's scary because of the double hex inside this deck list, but I think you got to take that risk.
Right.
And the payoff is actually fairly high in case you pick up inequality and your opponent extends even more onto the board.
Yeah, and now, you know, Korra's in a position where she needs to think about, okay, well, you know, she could use interestingly, she could use like a Flame Tongue here if she wanted to try to keep both of her minions at a little bit higher overall life to protect against like a Pyromancer, but probably a better opportunity to just get additional damage in with this Argent Commander and save that Flame Tongue for later. Because now, you know, Pathra is in a position where there's just a lot of damage on the board again. You know, if she does have Pyromancer, she could, you know, Pyromancer Consecration here to be very powerful, but she'd already used a Consecration, so the likelihood of that is much lower.
Man, yeah, you can see how important it is for Even Paladin to get those board clears, because Even Shaman having a curve that can plant the Sea Giant has kind of costed Pathra here. The Corpse Taker can buy a little bit of time, and as long as Korra does not extend to the point where she's losing literally everything, you know, with the Lich King and the Fire Elemental, this should still be Korra's game to lose.
Yeah, this does make a big Pyromancer and clear off, crucially, that Giant, which would represent lethal damage. There's 10 now.
6, 10, 14, 16?
Yeah, just 1 damage
off
lethal.
Fire Elemental. Fire Elemental 17.
Oh, you're totally right. Yeah, I think this is just lethal damage. There's 10, 14, yeah, plus 3, and Korra finds
wow.
it. We were not quite doing
Stinky.
the math quite right because we didn't see that elemental there. But yeah, exact lethal comes in for Korra here. So despite, you know, potentially a misstep in the early turns of that game, but of not playing the Flame Tongue, she does manage to even up the series in the even deck battle.
That's right.
For potentially a potential of at least a dozen times.
Look, Admiral's just jealous that someone on our casting team lived up to his potential.
Ooh, wow. Anyway.
He doesn't even get the retort.
Going into
he is so
game
mad.
3 we do have another mismatch of odd versus even. This one, I guess odd versus even, rather even versus even, but yeah. Unsurprisingly, Baku versus Gens, one of the very powerful decks that are available in this particular format. The odd rogue versus the even shaman. This is a matchup where the odd rogue's hero power can just kind of trump the hero power of the even shaman and stab things down. But Pathra here does not have a 1-drop, which can be a very big deal in the tempo of how things play out. Just kidding, she found one.
Yeah, Dire Maul is pretty much as good as it gets stat-wise for a 1-mana minion, to the point where when it was announced as a card, people were rejoicing. Aggro players were rejoicing, like, yes, finally a card that we can do something on turn 1 and 2.
Poison Daggers, gonna go ahead and take that down. And this may seem, you know, it's like, okay, well, you could just ping this down over 2 turns with your Direwolf Alpha, or rather, your Direwolf Alpha, Dire Mole. You don't want to allow potential buffs to come down and mess with your game plan. Even just a hero power into a healing totem can screw things up for you.
Yeah, and you know, you can start to see why Odd Rogue has a really good time against some of these early tempo decks, because anything you play just gets immediately challenged.
Yeah, the dagger here just answers so many things that Cora could possibly play. And here, the Primal Fin Totem. If Pathra had not used her dagger last turn and it just like plinked away, she wouldn't be able to immediately answer this totem this turn as well.
Yeah, and it's only going to get worse from here because Henge Clan Thug is going to be hard to answer without Hex. And even if you did Hex, that would take your entire mana.
And we did hear Zalay on the analyst desk talking about, well, in these aggressive matchups, it's very important who gets to go first. It's very important to be able to dictate the attacks. And here, the Audro going first, getting to dictate the attacks, shutting down the ability for buffs to be all that efficient. If Cora had gone first, maybe she could take value trades rather than having to use her coin and this Earthen Might to clear off that Henge Clan Thug. Yeah,
and needs to remove it immediately because the dagger can just come up next turn. That being said, the pressure can still go on. There's a Cold Blood available for Pathra, and I like using it in some capacity. But at the same time, you can also take it slow, because Cold Ball Scalebane with a wider board is problematic for the Shaman to deal with.
Yeah, the even just Tar Creeper into Cold Blood and to get you here is pretty appealing. It just, you get a lot of damage in. The Shaman did just use their coin, so there's not that much ability to really find additional tempo ways to swing the board back. There are hexes in Cora's deck, but hexing there is not particularly effective. You can use your entire turn to deal with one minion. You're gonna go ahead and just hero power though. This does help set up and remove the rest of the board. It can set up for that Scalebane like you were mentioning, which does snowball her advantage potentially even more. Potentially. It's potentially better.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There's some potential there.
All right, well, there's a poll in the chat. Hope you guys participate. Want to remind you guys with the Blacksmith extension. You're not supposed to look at that! Killer, you ruined it! You ruined it! You're not supposed to look at it!
You told me there was a poll in the chat. I got the chat up right here. I was talking
to the chat. You're not supposed to be participating in it.
It's really hard for you to just pull the wool over that. I'm sitting right here. I'm listening to you. That's part of my job.
For people who are on audio for some reason or not don't have access to it on mobile, there's a poll in the chat that says how many times will Kibler say the word potentially, and the only options, of course, are potentially 1 and 2. Now let's go back into this game here. I think Cora doesn't have the capacity to answer this board, and this is looking really bad if all she has to answer, this Cold Ball Scalebane and Diamond combo is just a Serenite Chain Gang.
I mean, the Chain Gangs do muck up the board quite a bit here. There is some ways for Pathra to pick it apart. I mean, one of the key things here is that Cora doesn't actually have any of her damage-based Battlecry minions. She doesn't have the Merc Spark Eel. She already used one earlier in order to potentially answer these. I'm just throwing myself off. If she finds a Fire Elemental, she could answer the Cobalt Scalebane here. But even with the Merc Spark Eel, she could only really deal with the Dire Mole here. There's just so much more on the board that she needs to deal with.
Yeah. What's the biggest threat of leaving that 1/1 up versus being very aggressive in this spot? I guess because you're coming up on turn 6. There's the possibility of Fire Elementals.
Well, one of the big things is trading against a deck that has Sea Giant is often going to be very effective.
That's true too.
Because in this situation, we are stranding Sea Giant here. If Pathra did not make that trade, we could see Menacing Nimbus plus Sea Giant in the following turn.
Okay. I mean, if you don't play this Argent Squire, then there's absolutely no Sea Giant, period.
It's true, yeah.
But I think Pathra even recognizes...
Sea Giant here is not... If you're going to just straight up Sea Giants, that's not a scary thing.
Exactly. It's the Fire Elemental that needs to happen this turn, and Cora's very far behind without it. And this is looking really bad.
Apparently this poll, by the way, set a record of some kind. I don't know if there's the most replies to this or something. I'm not sure.
So even when Kibler's getting memed on, he's winning life. Congratulations. Yet again, Brian Kibler, you end up on the right side of the coin.
All right, well...
And this is game over.
Speaking of the right side of the coin, Pathra here is pushing a lot of damage, and Cora, even if she had a Hagatha here, does not have enough mana to use it, does not have... it wouldn't do enough damage to clear off the board. There is just no out here. Menacing Nimbus looking for a desperation answer. Stormwatcher's not it, and Pathra is going to take this lead.
Yeah, Stormwatcher is an appropriate name for exactly that card because it can just sit and watch what happens from the sidelines. That is game 3, a quick victory for Pathra. And we're approaching the resolution of the series. If Pathra can win one more game after this, that'll be the end of the series. And, you know, Corey been a good sport, not conceding immediately.
I don't think there's a way for Pathra to find the 39 overkill or 40 overkill that would be needed to take the lead in that. She is going to find max damage, though. 6 overkill, looking for about 3rd place in those standings, I think.
It's the principle of it. Yeah. And, of course, Cora being a great sport about it as well. And Pathra takes game 3 easily through an odd... If it's that close, you still have to play as best as you can. Don't just cruise to victories and become complacent. Now let's go into exactly why Odd Warrior might be good against Spiteful Summoner Druid, a deck that we're seeing a little bit more this weekend, but still has also had its struggles. What happened? You know, for a while it felt like the Spiteful Summoner Druid was good against those slow defensive decks because it had such powerful mid-range minions. Why do you think Odd Warrior is so much better now? Well,
against Spiteful Druid in particular, I think it is quite strong because of Super Collider is one of the big added power to that deck. Obviously, also there's the nerf to Spiteful Summoner itself a while ago.
Right.
But Spiteful Druid does rely, as you said, on those big mid-range minions. Those hitting each other with Super Collider can really be trouble for that Druid deck. But it is the Rogue deck that Pathra is cruising with now, and that Cora does need to defeat. And this is a matchup where just that button, tank up, tank up, tank up. The Odd Rogue deck is generally looking to end the game as quickly as possible, and you know, it uses its hero power. It'll deal 4 damage, but it deals 4 damage over 2 turns, whereas Cora is going to be gaining 4 armor a turn from her hero power, along with just a bunch of taunts, defensive minions, lots of tools to mitigate that pressure from the Rogue.
Yes, the Odd Rogue does have some pretty decent mid-range options with things like Cobalt Scalebane, which is sometimes in and out of those deck lists, but you're going to need to rely upon that powerhouse and hope that you can dodge things like that Super Collider, which are very destructive to these mid-range minion decks. Now, Cora does have this Tar Creeper, and, you know, there are some interesting inclusions into her Warrior deck. We'll see if it ends up paying off whatsoever. I mean, she's playing the Faces Manipulator package, which I know that Admirable really likes. He was talking to me about how he thinks Odd Warrior doesn't really have a lot of good game plans towards the mid-stage of the game if they need to put a pressure back on their opponent. But Faces Manipulator does add exactly that. Yeah,
anytime I play against Odd Warrior and I'm playing something like, you know, Quest Paladin, because I'm a crazy person, they always like Faces Manipulator my Lanessa, and I'm like, well, that sucks. I just tried to do something cool, then you just took it from me, and then often silence it with an Owl, as we see in Cora's hand.
Yeah.
So, you know, here, the Tar Creeper is something we don't necessarily see all that often in a lot of Odd Warrior decks, because they have a lot of powerful tools to defend themselves anyway, but Cora's deck with the Faces Manipulator and just lots and lots of taunts available to it has kind of the low end and the high end of I'm going to win fatigue battles with Faceless plus the Elise and Dyrone Hatchlings, whereas she is, you know, really, really powerful against these aggressive decks with all the taunts in addition to that armor gain.
Wow.
And even here, we see the Fiery War Axe. This is a one-of in Cora's deck. So good at answering something like a Vicious Fledgling, as we're gonna see right here. It's gonna hack down that Flappy Bird. And, you know, Pathra, she was just trying to get through this Tar Creeper to connect with that Flappy Bird, and is, you know, going to be in a position here where she's a little bit sad.
Yeah, that's right. So people who, you know, lament the idea of Fiery War Axe being nerfed, hey, you can play an Odd Paladin, and ends up working out really nicely against the Vicious Fledgling.
I mean, and Cora here, she has Ironbeak Owl. Patra's going to be trying to set up, okay, I'm going to get a 4/4 here. I'm going to kill your Tar Creeper with this Deckhand plus Dagger, or perhaps with Deadly Poison plus Dagger, depending. The Deckhands are interesting because they combine better with the Fungal Mancer, which you see in Patra's hand, but she gets kind of minimum value off of the Deadly Poison here if she only uses it on a 1-charge Dagger.
Yeah, and in this matchup, you may need that value, unless you pick up the Myers Unstable element. Cora has one of the best answers to this.
It's Dynomatic too. A couple of options, either Owl, you know, just silence it, because there's not many things to silence in the matchup, but Dynomatic gives you a more substantial minion on board and saves your weapon. So yeah, I like the Dynomatic, just clearing this off from Cora here. And, you know, Cora's at 31. Patra's the one who's low in life from attacking into that Tar Creeper.
Right.
And, you know, now is actually the one on the defensive, which is never the position the Odd Rogue wants to be.
Yeah, that's so weird. Odd Rogue is playing cleanup against Odd Warrior, and Odd Warrior is supposed to be the one that just simply hero powers and passes until they use any of their AoE cards or just kind of place taunts in the way.
Well, that's the power of Dynomatic. You clear off the board and get a minion here. And it's the power of Fiery War Axe. It may no longer cost 2 mana, but costing 3 mana. That's a buff for Odd Warrior. Gets to play it.
How deep does Pathra want to go here? She can clear and then just kind of take it easy. Doesn't have to extend it to the board, but at the same time, Fire War Axe eventually has to swing.
Well, next turn, Pathra could play Dire Maul plus South Sea Coin Fungalmancer and actually get to attack in and buff both minions. If she just played a Dire Maul here, it's just going to get hacked down by the weapon. Exactly. So I think that what she's looking at doing here is trying to land that Fungalmancer on 2 targets with the coin.
I think that's pretty good, given that that's the only thing she can really do with her hand. She needs her minions to stick, needs to get maximum value. So if it's going to swing at a target, maybe swing at the Fungalmancer after the buff has been applied.
And yep, she finds a Tar Creeper. I don't know that that really changes much of anything for Patra's plan here. It is a little bit awkward if she does. Maybe it does, because she could actually... Yeah, she still doesn't have a minion that's going to survive. She could play Tar Creeper into Deckhand Cold Blood or something and take this out. The problem with her previous plan, really, is that now she's just buffing and losing her minions into this Direhorn Alpha that hit the board.
This is like, the quote fallacy that a lot of people end up falling into. It's like, well, I don't want them to get value off an easy swing, and while you're not wrong about that, it's only going to get worse. If they develop any kind of minion whatsoever, then their Fiery War Axe will be able to leverage, they'll be able to leverage that weapon, and it's developing even better board beyond that. That's assuming that, you don't anticipate them playing any other minion. Yeah,
and the Tar Creeper does allow Pathra to protect the Dire Maul, which she otherwise would have had threatened by that whack. So I do like this play here. Cora now, she could just faceless the Tar Creeper.
Wow,
got me a taunt.
I wasn't thinking. I was thinking about, do we just want an Omega Assembly to just discover some kind of mid-sized taunt? There's a handful, right? Even the Security Rover. It could be something to look at. But now Cora's saying, I'm just going to toss in the Faceless. It's not going to be that great. A little bit of a punish, if anything.
Yeah.
Because now Patrick can coin out Cold Blood. And that's a lot of damage coming out from this Tar Creeper. You can attack with the Dire Maul, Hero Power, and then coin Cold Blood and just force your opponent to try to attack into it if they need to use that Fiery War Axe.
I think you actually may want to use the Tar Creeper to attack initially and put the Cold Blood on the Dire Maul, because if your opponent's going to silence, you don't want to silence your taunt away as well.
Okay, that's fair.
And there are 2 Owls in Cora's deck. Yeah,
that's true. The double owl is a big problem. I'm trying to think from Patra's perspective.
Well, in particular, looking at the way Cora played this turn, she played a Face Manipulator. It probably means she has a relatively weak remaining board, or weak remaining hand, which could easily include something like an owl.
Yeah, I just look at it from Odd Rogue wants to be really aggressive, and if you put it on the taunt minion, they have to swing at it if they want to Reckless Flurry, for example.
Sure, so, that's fair. Reckless Flurry is something that maybe she wouldn't have deployed before, so yeah. I can certainly see that. Matriarch
goodness.
Whew. That's a big one pretty quickly.
Yeah, that Tar Creeper is going to take a huge hit in stats. Oh my gosh, is it huge?
Down to 1-5.
I forgot I got the +2 attack to it. Would have had 9 damage. Brutal.
And Cora here, she obviously may wish to play the Matriarch because it seems pretty powerful. Okay, I can get this big taunt to play, but she's definitely paying attention to, okay, well, this is a good turn for you to Vile Spine. You haven't Vile Spined yet. So it's something she definitely needs to give some respect to.
Right.
And does decide to just go ahead and get rid of the weapon and use her hero power, which, of course, is exceptionally powerful every turn.
Yeah, but, funnily enough, because of all this, attacking from Pathra and using her life as a resource, she's actually kind of fairly low.
Right.
So, and if she does it again, I wonder if it's going to be the point where SongBird only has a stick like Baku, and then that's just the game.
It's like, I got me this so 7-8. Go. Cora's at 31.
Right.
It's just such a huge life lead here that even if she doesn't have this AoE. She hasn't drawn a single one of her AoE effects this game, but this is, I think, shows how favored this Odd Warrior deck is.
Yeah.
Because Cora's had some of the kind of weak cards, frankly, with the Owl, the Baku drawn, and even from that position, she's still in such dominant shape right now.
Yeah.
Super Collider picked up. That's not amazing here. Because, frankly, the fact that the target group is silenced makes that a little bit worse.
Yeah, I was looking up some of the data since you were talking about why it's so favored, and it's like, this is like one of Odd Warrior's like best matchups, period.
Oh, yeah.
Like 76% currently from rank 5 for Legend, and some other decks are like 73, 80%. That's what Odd Warrior does. It just, the matchups it's favored in, it wins very hard.
Right.
But some of the matchups that it's unfavored in, like Shudderwock Shaman before the nerf,
right,
it just feels like it has no chance of winning.
Well, frankly, it's a big part of the reason I think that Odd Warrior, we've seen Odd Warrior even on ladder in the past few days have a massive resurgence, because with the nerfs to Shudderwock Shaman specifically, obviously the Chain Gang change, it removes one of the major matchups that was so hard to win. And the other matchups that were so hard to win, things like Togwaggle Druid, took a massive hit with the Wild Growth and Nourish nerfs. But Odd Warrior's power in this sort of matchup is still very, very, very high.
Yeah, I mean, Odd Warrior's kind of like a Quest Rogue equivalent for control decks, just super polarized in terms of how it beats the aggro but loses the control. But in this matchup, it's targeted perfectly, because people always look at Warrior as a fantastic last hero standing class, even from the very beginning of Hearthstone. You can use it to queue up directly into the matchup that you need to shut down the aggression, and you can see exactly why that is. And now Cora, successfully getting to 10 mana, can get the Omega Assembly. And I mean, it's not the most amazing hand, but it's just stuff to do, which is good enough, honestly. Look at how low, again, Patra's life total is. If a single minion sticks, that's just going to be game over.
And Cora still, 22 here. She's actually just going to the offensive. Who needs to play this Matriarch? I'm just going to play these 2 Death Rattle minions.
Yeah, this reminds me of the old card Pilot Shredder with the Harvest Golem. It just feels like 2014 Hearthstone all over again.
It is kind of funny that this is a play that Cora's making specifically because she doesn't want a Vile Spine Slayer to take out her one big threat. Here, she's playing 2 things. She has enough life that doesn't really matter if Pathra even just push face with like Fungalmancer here, kind of worst case scenario, right? That damage is going to have to potentially go to these minions because Patra's just so low and can't actually burst Cora down at any point soon.
Yep, well said. Not too much to add, really.
She just this turn dealt 1 tank up worth of damage, and she's dead in 2 turns to the board.
Yeah, and the board's going to get even worse because your opponent just effectively passed. They played an Argent Squire in Hero Powered.
Right.
Are they holding, Leroy or in Cold Bloods? But when they have used the Cold Bloods, there's a bunch of questions probably going through Songbird's head.
Yeah, now Cora can just push this damage to the face, play big taunt minion, tank up.
Yeah. Trade, go face. It really doesn't matter. It's just a numbers game at this point. The number is, of course, how many turns until Patra concedes or just let SongBird go for the overkill.
Yeah, and this we've talked about just how bad a matchup this is. And yeah, not even going to bother playing anything. Okay, let's let you get max damage in.
Hey, return the favor. I mean, SongBird did the same exact thing for Patra, not too long ago, and now we are going to game number 5 yet again. But
since Spiteful Druid in that this is a matchup that the Druid deck has some tools that can be very powerful in, but is overall a matchup that tends to favor the Warrior significantly.
That's right, and you do have Greedy Sprite as your replacement for that ramp for exactly what you were describing.
Interesting, this draw from Pathra here, she does have the Infestation, she has the Greedy Sprite. The Greedy Sprite is very important in terms of allowing you to get to your big power plays quickly. This is a matchup against Odd Warrior, where your early plays are less impactful because there are so many powerful ways for them to deal with it. I actually might have considered in Patra's seat even keeping one of those big plays, potentially the Grand Archivist, because you can get a very fast ultimate Infestation with that Greedy Sprite early on.
I like that point that you just made too. Even though you can't control the Grand Archivist, still has a really powerful effect, even if you hit yourself.
Right. I mean, turn 7 with the ramp from the Greedy Sprite, draw 5 cards, deal 5 damage, create 5 Reddit threads. It's
summon a 5/5. The 5 Reddit threads is the most scary part.
That is, yeah. It's actually a terrifying ability for any card to have.
Yeah, that's a 90-10 matchup. for the Reddit mods. Well, you know, for Cora's perspective, something that we were bringing up earlier in the break as we were analyzing it before Game 4. So you think Super Collider is, like, the most important card in this matchup, or is there other important things to focus on?
I think Super Collider is the most important new card for sure, because it does give you the ability to pick apart your opponent's mid-game, which is where they're often quite strong.
So, yeah.
Because if Dynamatic as well, as we see Cora pick up here. The mid-game of the Spiteful Druid deck is so much weaker against Whir than it used to be. It used to be that, okay, you can kind of force them to use their AoE, but now there's just so many tools they have to pick apart these boards, they can save their AoE for your Spiteful Summoner boards.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I think that Druid here, especially this hand is starting to look a little bit awkward for Pathra because they're supposed to start pushing and exploding around this juncture of the game, but I mean, their best play is a Tar Creeper. That's not an aggressive card. That's supposed to protect your other threats like Vicious Fledglings, and then use that to buff with Fungal Mancer.
Yeah, this is, you know, a draw that has, you know, obviously a lot of minions for Pathra to get down, but like you mentioned, no real heavy hitters right now. She has the cards that can clean up, like the Leroy to push for the final damage, but without Fungal Mancer here, she doesn't really have much threat. Without you know, any of the Cobalt Scalebanes, anything to make these small minions impactful. Right now, these minions are just going to get picked apart by Cora's removal.
Yeah, I like this Mega Sunblade. Just try to look at what you can get. Nightmare Mouser is the only minion to play. No way you would be able to pull off a Mecha'thun. Rubian Unraveler. So there's that, you know, tech card that's been making their way into Spiteful Druid list for some time now, and it's so interesting to me because, you know, when you look at that card, what is it specifically trying to target, Killer, when you see that?
Rubian Unraveler is a great card, specifically against Psychic Scream decks, because you make a big board, and you know, if your opponent is playing Priest, you play an Unraveler. It's like, okay, well now you can't answer my board. And it's also just generally powerful against any of the spell-based combo decks. Could, you know, really seal the deal against like a deck like Topsy Turvy Priest. Again, also Psychic Scream deck.
That's true. Oh man, I can't even imagine the Topsy Priest and how they have to handle the Rubian Unraveler.
It's tough.
It does sound really annoying, for sure. Now Cora can start getting to the meat of her deck. You know, the best is yet to come for Pathra. She's going to start hitting some really powerful stuff when she gets the ultimate station if she doesn't have the Spiteful Summoner. But now Cora gets to access 5 mana, and that is where this deck is at its best. And you look exactly why. Super Collider on 5 clears the board. You utilize the attack on your opponent's Tar Creeper, but you also have available to you Dynamatic.
I was going to say, she can use Dynamatic here and attack into the Zilliax because it gives her, you know, 3/4 minion on the board, wipes out the Tar Creeper here, still has potentially Super Collider later. She might just want to get Super Collider down because A, it answers this, and you still have the Super Collider for next turn, and also just still have the Dynamatic at hand. Does decide to just... Oh my god, I can't believe everything hit that Tar Creeper. For those who don't know, Amalgam, also a mech.
Yeah, it's
everything.
Everything. Yeah, no, you definitely summarized it very well. Like, sometimes you want to get the Super Collider ahead of time, but Spiteful Summoner Druid is not nearly as good at setting that up compared to, you know, say like a Spellstone from Hunter that you really want to set up Super Collider on 5 so you can answer like anything your opponent can play.
I mean, looking at this, you know, situation for Pathra here, I kind of go back to that opening hand where maybe with the Greedy Sprite you wanted to keep the Grand Archivist. Maybe you wanted to give yourself something to have that power spike in the middle turns of the game. Obviously, it's not necessarily as powerful as just, you know, immediately hitting a Spiteful Summoner that your opponent can't remove, but your opponent has like shield slams and everything that those just big minions don't necessarily end up being good enough. So. It's entirely possible that, you know, Pathra just has such weak turns over the next few turns of this game that once she does get to the Infestation at 10 mana, it's not good enough.
Wow, no play. No play whatsoever. Floating effectively 7 mana.
Interesting, because Pathra could have played the shard into Floop and double froze the face, froze the minion, and be able to try and, you know, establish some sort of board. And that's something that she could also follow up with a Rubian Unraveler, which is like, okay, well, I've made things awkward for you to deal with my board via minions, and now it's hard to deal via spells.
Yeah.
but as it stands, Core is the one who has the board presence advantage here, and pretty significantly too.
Yeah, and without Spiteful Summoner, which is obviously what this deck is named after, it's going to be tough. But this is an old classic trick that you see very often, which is Leroy and Mind Control Tech. Back in the day, that was a...
Oh, okay. Steals the best option there.
Wow.
That's actually huge, because it went from Korra having a massive board advantage to now Pathra has dealt with her board and developed one of her own all in one fell swoop.
Did that just happen? That's one of the best minions to take from Odd Warrior, honestly, outside of Baku itself.
It also just gives you a big minion in your deck.
Right, so you can draw with Ultimate Infestation. It worked out perfectly. And that's something that I wasn't considering, like, maybe you save Leroy for Leroy Mind Control deck. I don't think Pathra was expecting it either. It just happened to be a situation where she identified pairing together these cards.
But this is an opportunity. Core can clear off this board with the Dynamatic and the Whelps plus Super Collider. And, tank a little bit more. Despite the big swing, she's still in a reasonable position. But, now the Ultimate Infestation is, a turn closer. And now we have potentially freeze if she wants.
Yep.
Freeze and Rattler.
That's the hero power.
Okay, now Pathra has potentially locked herself out of playing Infestation here.
The Rubian Unraveler is symmetrical. Neither player can play their spells at normal cost. So
I feel like Korra wants to let this live. Because she knows that the best thing that Pathra could possibly do next turn is Infestation.
I think I saw Pathra laugh a little bit.
Yeah.
We have the stream pulled up, so I was looking for just a little bit of a delay just to see her reaction, and I think she chuckled herself realizing what just happened. I think that was a total brain fart. And, I have to wonder if that's just part of the fatigue settling in. And you know what? Why stop there? Double down. We're going 4 cost.
You know what I want to see? I want to see Korra facelessly next turn.
Yes.
No one can play spells. Minions only, okay?
The way Hearthstone was meant to be played.
Minion a minion,
That is really funny, but also pretty sad if you're a Pathra fan, because you want to get the best card in your deck. The second best card in your deck, because Spiteful Summoner is obviously the best in the context of how your deck was constructed. The real best play, though, will be to play Vicious Fledgling and the second Vicious Fledgling through the Floop, and then probably freeze your opponent so that they can't utilize anything.
Well, Core does have Dr. Boom, which will unfreeze her when she changes to a different hero.
Right.
If that is enough to keep her in the position that she wants to be.
Yeah. I like the meme play of the second Unraveler, but in terms of
I do think
she sets it up.
Wow. Okay. Well, if she does just go all in, we haven't seen a single AOE. So if she were to fledgling into Glacial Shard, one brawl, one Reckless Flurry could just ruin all of that.
Well, if there's only one card for you to refill your hand and summon a board and remove a minion on the opposing side.
Yes, she's copying it. She's doing it. She has no.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome.
I love it.
No, it's the great play.
Yes. No, this is fantastic. And we see Pathra just laughing here because she may have just signed her own death sentence with that Nerubian Unraveler, because now.
Oh, you got a Spiteful Summoner. Okay. Now she can play 2 of them back to back.
It's true. It is true. If she plays no minion, well, if she was going to do that, she wanted to play a different minion for a card again.
He's back for vengeance because he didn't get to he didn't get to have his full cameo appearance from the Gia and Slissa series.
All right. Can we protect this Unraveler for another turn? I don't think so. Not right now, at least.
From what it seems like, no, but...
It's kind of interesting. I wonder if Korra actually just wants to kill the Hakar, because if Pathra does cast Infestation, she's so much more likely to draw into Corrupted Bloods. I don't even know that she wants to silence it. She has 2 owls here, and could.
Wait, Pathra also just gave up her second Spiteful Summoner.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think the order was probably not what she wanted to be doing there. Though it is also arguable that that she's planning on casting Ultimate Infestation next turn anyway.
Oh, wow. She gets the Kaboom, which allows her to deal 1
Kaboom
damage
is actually
to everything.
perfect.
And that removes the central minion, allows the trades, keep the
Protects the
Nerubian.
Unraveler.
It protects the Unraveler.
This is just, oh, this is so insane.
This is becoming a meme
It
game.
really is.
And now, Pathra... I was scared that Pathra was going to draw Corrupted Blood, which deals damage, 3 damage to you, and shuffles another copy into the deck. So, if Pathra could have actually just lost right on the spot there. And now Grand Archivist comes out.
Well, that's going to start drawing some Corrupted Bloods because it's going to cast Ultimate Infestation.
or it could pull out Corrupted Blood from the deck.
Oh yeah, it could just cast Corrupted Blood. You're
cast
totally right.
Corrupted
It could cast Corrupted Blood.
Do it!
Yes! Oh my
She just killed
God.
herself!
That is just the end of the game!
What is that?
Look, that was one of the craziest games I have ever witnessed. Patra's own Nerubian Unraveler locks her Ultimate Infestation. Her Spiteful Summoner